The case of a 4-year-old boy allegedly confirmed to have been kidnapped from a remote homestead in the South Australian outback. No footprints leading away, no witnesses, no cameras, just one small boot print in the dirt. This is the case of Gus Lamont, a young child who disappeared on September 27, 2025. And what happened that day has confounded investigators, family, and the wider community alike. Gus Lamont, only 4 years old, was last seen playing on a dirt mound near the family homestead at Oak Park Station, near Yunta, a remote pastoral property. His grandmother, who was watching him at the time, went to call him inside when he did not respond, and it was at this point that the alarming realization set in that Gus was missing. The property, isolated from any neighboring houses or roads, had no cameras to capture his last movements, and the surrounding terrain presented an unforgiving environment with rocky surfaces, sparse vegetation, and extreme temperatures. Before we dive deeper, like, share, and subscribe to Agent Tim channel. Drop in the comment section where you're watching from. We would like to know how far this case has created awareness. From the start, suspicions of kidnapping emerged, and now, with new forensic analysis and witness interviews, it appears authorities may soon reveal what truly happened after a string of critical evidence came to light. The initial discovery of a single boot print, consistent with what Gus was believed to be wearing, was the only physical trace of his presence outside, and from there, the mystery deepened. South Australia Police, along with volunteers from the State Emergency Service and the Australian Defence Force, mobilized an extensive search operation covering nearly 470 square kilometers in the initial phase, using mounted units, drones, infrared cameras, and aerial surveys. Despite these efforts, no additional physical evidence of Gus's presence or movement was found. No clothing, no other footprints, no signs of struggle, and no indication of how far he may have moved from the homestead. A renewed search conducted in October covered an additional 95 square kilometers, with similar resources and technology, yet again failing to locate any trace of the child. And this absence of evidence began to raise serious questions about the circumstances surrounding his disappearance. The environment itself is harsh and unforgiving. Temperatures during the period of his disappearance reached upwards of 37 degrees Celsius. The terrain is rocky and dry, and a 4-year-old, although capable of walking independently, would be highly vulnerable in such conditions. While accidental wandering and environmental exposure were considered, investigators noted that the absence of any remains, clothing, or other evidence made this hypothesis increasingly unlikely. Behavioral analysis of the family provided additional insight into the human dimensions of the case. The parents displayed controlled sorrow and exhaustion, a common response among families experiencing sudden trauma, with careful emotional regulation in public appearances. The grandmother, as the last person to see Gus, exhibited visible self-blame and defensive tendencies, which may be attributed to guilt and fear of public judgment rather than any complicity in his disappearance. Forensic specialists examined the single boot print, soil, and terrain conditions, and conducted environmental assessments, though no DNA or additional physical evidence has been recovered. The lack of surveillance, witnesses, or traceable vehicle activity complicates the investigation, but investigators remain focused on potential abduction scenarios, noting that the child could have been removed quickly via a nearby dirt road that connects to the main highway. Several investigative theories have been established. The primary hypothesis is abduction, either by a stranger or someone familiar with the property, given the complete absence of trace evidence and the proximity of a vehicle-accessible road. Environmental death remains a possibility, but is increasingly seen as unlikely due to the lack of recovered remains after extensive searches. Accidental concealment or foul play on the property remains under review, though investigators are focusing primarily on the abduction theory. Historically, there have been very few documented kidnapping or disappearance cases in the exact Oak Park/Yunta region, making Gus's case particularly unusual and concerning. Prior South Australian cases, such as the disappearance of Rihanna Barrow or the Beaumont children, provide some context for child abduction patterns in Australia, but the remote and isolated nature of Gus's disappearance differentiates it from previous cases. Investigators have also emphasized the importance of reconstructing a precise timeline of events, including the exact time the grandmother last saw Gus, when he was reported missing, and the estimated walking speed and distance a child of his age could have covered in the terrain. This timeline is critical for determining possible routes of abduction and narrowing investigative windows. Additional investigative actions include canvassing local station workers, delivery drivers, travelers, and nearby pastoralists for any unusual vehicles, strangers, or discarded objects in the days before or after the disappearance. Social media and online communities are also being monitored for photos, videos, or posts from the area on that day. Psychological profiling of both the victim and potential abductor is also ongoing. Gus's routine, familiarity with the property, and vulnerabilities as a young child inform investigators about possible risks, while the profile of a potential abductor, whether a stranger or acquaintance, opportunistic or planned, and with the capacity to transport a child quickly, is being developed to focus the investigation. Technical and digital evidence gathering remains a key area, with cell tower logs, mobile device data, and satellite imagery being examined to identify unusual activity in the area during the critical timeframe. Forensic gaps, including the absence of CCTV coverage and minimal physical evidence, highlight the importance of advanced techniques such as environmental DNA sampling, ground-penetrating radar, and cadaver dog searches to uncover potential clues. The media and public response to Gus's disappearance has also been a significant factor, with televised appeals, social media engagement, and community volunteer searches shaping both the investigation and public awareness. Investigators emphasize the importance of verified information and discourage speculation, while also encouraging anyone with potential knowledge to come forward. Taskforce Horizon, the investigative team overseeing the case, continues to review all leads, including vehicle movement, satellite data, and aerial imaging. They maintain close coordination with South Australia Police, local authorities, and federal agencies to maximize resources and expertise. The timeline reconstruction, environmental assessments, forensic reviews, behavioral analysis, and public engagement all form part of a coordinated effort to uncover any trace of Gus Lamont and determine the circumstances of his disappearance. Despite the passage of time, authorities stress that the case remains active and that every lead is important. The isolation of Oak Park Station, combined with the harsh environmental conditions, the lack of surveillance, and the absence of witnesses, presents unique challenges that require meticulous attention to detail and a multifaceted investigative approach. Forensic experts have recommended ongoing environmental DNA testing, detailed soil and terrain analysis, and the continued use of satellite and drone imagery to identify any anomalies that could indicate movement or presence in the area. Behavioral analysts continue to assess family members' accounts for consistency, microexpressions, and emotional cues that may assist in reconstructing the timeline and identifying potential gaps or overlooked details. Investigators remain cautious in their approach, balancing sensitivity toward the family with the urgency of exploring all possible leads. They continue to examine vehicle access points, potential abduction routes, and regional travel logs, looking for any indications that Gus could have been removed from the area by an external actor. Public appeals remain a crucial tool for gathering information, and authorities urge anyone with knowledge of unusual activity on or around September 27, 2025 to contact Taskforce Horizon immediately. The search and investigation have also highlighted the need for improved safety measures and monitoring in remote properties, emphasizing the vulnerability of children in isolated areas and the challenges faced by law enforcement when immediate evidence is scarce. As the investigation continues, authorities remain committed to using every available resource, from advanced forensic techniques to behavioral analysis and public engagement, to locate Gus Lamont and resolve the circumstances of his disappearance. The collaboration between local police, federal agencies, volunteer search groups, and the broader community illustrates the comprehensive approach necessary in cases of missing children, particularly in remote and challenging environments. Each investigative avenue, from forensic science to psychological profiling, plays a critical role in understanding what may have occurred and in guiding search and recovery efforts. The ongoing work of Taskforce Horizon demonstrates the dedication to exhaustive, methodical investigation, prioritizing factual evidence, cross-verifying accounts, and systematically evaluating each potential theory, whether environmental, accidental, or criminal in nature. Authorities continue to maintain communication with the family, providing support while balancing the integrity of the investigation and the need for objective analysis of all leads. In conclusion, the disappearance of Gus Lamont remains one of the most perplexing and heart-wrenching cases in recent Australian history. The combination of environmental challenges, lack of witnesses, forensic gaps, and the remote location creates a complex investigative landscape. However, with ongoing analysis, meticulous attention to behavioral and forensic detail, public cooperation, and persistent investigative efforts, there remains hope that the truth behind Gus Lamont's disappearance will soon be revealed after a series of critical evidence developments. If you want to stay updated on Gus Lamont's disappearance and all real-life mysteries we cover, make sure to like this video, share it to raise awareness, and subscribe to our channel. Every lead matters, and your support could help bring Gus home.